Hello, hello, I'm Jamie Trull, your favorite CPA and financial literacy coach, and today we're going to be talking about EIN numbers, and specifically whether you need an EIN number for your business or not, and then I'm actually going to walk you through how to get a free EIN. I'm going to tell you, do not pay for this. There are lots of services out there that will charge you stupid amounts of money in order to do this for you. It is a 5-minute process. You can get it immediately, and I'm going to show you how. But first, let's talk about who needs an EIN. So, a few reasons you may need an EIN. Number one, if you are an LLC or a corporation, you're going to want to have an EIN. An EIN is an employer ID number, and regardless of whether you're actually employing anyone or not, you do need to have an EIN in those circumstances. If you are not an LLC or a corporation, then it's really your choice whether you get an EIN, but you still can. And in a lot of cases, I do think you should. Now, you definitely need one as well, even if you're a sole proprietor, if you are employing people. So outside of yourself, because you technically are not an employee of your own business if you are a sole proprietor, right? But if you're employing anyone else, which you can do as a sole proprietor, you will need to get an EIN. Now, I'll also say in that case, I generally don't recommend that you employ people without becoming an LLC. So that's just kind of a side note. I am #not a lawyer. But I do think that it's smart if you're going to be employing people that you go ahead and become at least an LLC. Then you can decide if you want to become potentially an S Corp and elect that status. We're not going to get into all of that here today. I have other videos on S Corp status and LLCs. But if you are employing people, I do recommend that you're at least an LLC to be able to do that. Now, let's say you're just a sole proprietor and it's only you. Then do you need to have an EIN? Well, the short answer is no, you don't need to have one, but I generally recommend it anyway. And the main reason that I recommend having an EIN, even as a sole proprietor, is for privacy purposes. So remember, anytime you're filling out W-4s that you are going to have to give to potential people that are going to issue you 1099s, let's say you're doing 1099 work for people, in which case you have to put either your social security number or your EIN. Now, you can see that especially if you're working with a lot of different people, I don't love the idea of having your social security number on a whole bunch of documents that a lot of people have in their hands. It's just not great practice. So I'm a big fan of, from a privacy perspective, even always having that EIN. It also helps you to really function and think of yourself more as a business than as just a person doing the work. And I always think that you're going to make better financial decisions when you run your business like a business. So if you've decided that you want to grab that EIN, I'm going to show you the screen by screen on how to do that for free. Again, don't pay somebody to do this. This is super duper easy to do yourself, and I'm going to show you how to do it. So go to jamietrull.com/EIN. I've set up a short link that'll just redirect you to the IRS website, so it doesn't go to my website at all, but it's going to take you right to the screen that I have on the screen right now. And again, this is directly from the IRS. This is where you want to go. Don't Google apply for EIN, because a lot of times what you're going to see on Google are paid services for this. In fact, my husband almost ended up paying for an EIN because that was the first result on Google. So you want to go directly to the IRS website for this. You can go search it on the IRS website, or you can just use jamietrull.com/EIN and it will send you right there. So when you're on this screen, you are going to see some information. It is important to note the hours of operation because those do matter. If you apply outside of that time, you're not going to get it immediately. So I do recommend going ahead and waiting and making sure that you are within that 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time when you are applying. I don't know who among us is going to be applying for an EIN at midnight, but apparently I'm sure it's happened. Okay, so when you do that, you're going to come in here, you can read some of this, and then you're going to hit the Apply Online Now button. And then it's going to take you to some warnings about this being U.S. government system, authorized use only. Of course, just press OK. And you can do some reading. I love how they really have a lot of information within here. So if you have questions about EINs, you can click on some of these buttons and read more about who needs an EIN, when you might potentially need a new EIN. So in some cases, if you change your business type, you might need to get a new EIN. So you can read more about that by clicking on some of these links. And it's going to give you some information about making sure that you complete it within 15 minutes, et cetera, et cetera. And you will be able to use your EIN immediately. So you will get it immediately, especially if you are between those hours of operation, you'll get it immediately and you'll be able to use it immediately. And you can only get one EIN per day. I'm not sure who out there, again, is signing up for multiple EINs, but it's very clear that each party can get one EIN per day. So on the screen, you are going to see the different legal structures, and it is very important that you know what your legal structure is, and also that you think a little bit ahead when you're doing this. So if you plan to potentially change your legal structure within the next, 3, 6, 9 months, then it may make sense for you to either wait on getting your EIN or go ahead and make those changes now if they make sense, right? From a legal and from a tax perspective, go ahead and make those changes now so that you don't have to go through this process twice, because changing an EIN can be annoying and frustrating. So I do recommend you know your entity type and what you want your entity type to be. And also, if you are going to be an LLC and you have not done that yet, you are going to want to become an LLC before you get your EIN. And I'll show you why here in a minute, but ultimately it's going to ask you questions about when your LLC was formed, etc. And it's better to go ahead and do that work and get that filed with your state and then come back and get your EIN afterwards. I know that can be confusing as to the sequence of events, but generally that's how you should do it. So let's say we are already an LLC. We've already done that with the state. We have gone through the process of filing that LLC. You usually will have to pay for that, but you may be able to find services that will actually file it for free for you, and you just have the state filing fees, etc. That's going to be different in every state. But an LLC will protect you legally. That's really the key of an LLC, is it protects you legally. There's no tax difference between an LLC and a sole proprietor, except for the fact that you will be protected legally, that if something happens, if someone sues you in your business, if you are found liable, they cannot come and take your personal assets, okay? It's only your business assets that are going to be up for grabs in that circumstance. So anywho, let's say you are an LLC. We're gonna press continue here, and then you're gonna have some more questions. First, it's gonna tell you a little bit more just to make sure. So you wanna read through this and say, yes, this applies to me. Basically, this is exactly, what I am. I am an LLC. An LLC is not incorporated and they don't file articles of incorporation, okay? So you want to make sure that you're reading all this and that this applies to you. If it does, you're gonna press continue. And then you're gonna say how many members are in the LLC. So if you have an LLC with multi-members, you're gonna say that. If it's just you, then you're gonna put 1, and then you're gonna pick your state. So I'm gonna pick the great state of Tennessee because that is where I live, and we're gonna press continue. Again, it's gonna tell you more information. This is really good information to read over and get familiar with, but don't let it overly confuse you. Ultimately, all this is saying is you are an LLC, and therefore you file a Schedule C in your tax return. That's ultimately the same for a sole proprietor and an LLC. They're treated, like I said, the same from a tax perspective, unless you end up electing to be taxed as an S Corp. Okay, so there's a couple things you can do. If you don't want to be a Schedule C filer, and again, this is something you definitely want to talk through with your accountant. I also have a lot of other content on this channel about S corporations specifically, but you can go ahead and be a corporation, this is generally talking about a C corporation, or you can file 2553 to become an S corporation. But again, you'll want to get your EIN first, and then you'll file Form 2553 with that EIN, and they should automatically update it to S Corp status when you do that if your Form 2553 is accepted. So again, talk about that with an accountant if you decide S Corp might be right for you. But let's move forward as if we are just going to be an LLC here. So I'm gonna press continue. And now it's gonna ask you why. Why are you getting this right now? Why are you requesting this EIN? So is it because you have a new business? Are you hiring employees and therefore you need it because you're going to have employees on staff? Are you doing it for banking purposes? Again, that's another really good reason. Some banks do want to have you apply with an EIN. They won't take a social security number. It depends on the bank. Next, it could be because you changed your type of organization potentially, right? And so you may need a new EIN. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. It gets really tricky figuring out when you do and when you don't, but you can read some of the information there. Or maybe you purchased a business and that's why you're getting it. So in this case, we'll just say started a new business, but pick the one that is applicable to your situation and why you are getting an EIN now. And then it's going to ask you, of course, for a whole bunch of personal information. So I am going to put this in and then skip directly to the next because I'm not going to show you all of my personal information. Sorry, internet. And now I'm going to put in all of my address information. This is going to be where your LLC is physically located. That's the address that you want to put in here. Okay, and then you're going to get to this page, which is going to ask you the legal name of your LLC. This is super important. It must match your articles of organization. So because you're an LLC, you should have articles of organization. Whoever you worked with to get that LLC should have that for you. And you're going to want to make sure that name matches, okay? And then if there's a different name that you're going to be doing business as, if it's different than that legal name, okay, then you're going to put that in the trade name doing business as. You're going to select your county, you're going to select your state, and you're going to select the information about when and where your articles of incorporation were filed. So you're going to put your start date. So again, like I said, it's going to make it a lot easier to be able to do this if you've already filed your articles of incorporation. If you've already become an LLC, then you will be able to fill this out and get your EIN immediately. And then once you've done all that, you should immediately get your EIN. So that's the great thing, is that it's immediate. It takes literally a couple of minutes. I bet you can do this in under 5 minutes and you don't have to pay anybody to get this EIN, and then you have it. Now I will tell you, make sure you know what your business name is going to be. If you're doing this, especially as a sole proprietor, and you think you might change your business name, it is a pain in the you-know-what to change your business name or really change anything about your EIN. So I'm gonna give you that warning. I know it as a fact because my original business name was Modern CPA. Then I ended up changing it to Balance CFO when I decided that I wasn't going to be offering CPA services. And it just became a nightmare, and it took almost a year for that to get changed just to make a name change with the IRS. So there you have it. That is how to get an EIN and when you might need one. Hopefully this has been really helpful for you. If you are looking for other information and walkthroughs, I have lots. Specifically, I did a video recently about how to pay your quarterly estimated taxes, which we should all be doing as business owners. We want to be paying those quarterly estimated taxes. I have a full walkthrough of how to do that on the IRS website as well. Check out the video that is linked here, and check out some of the other awesome stuff that we have for you. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.